Calling all beings, y'all. Let's get it.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
Yeah! Welcome back to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ. Super duper excited because my brother, Sergeant Peter Murphy, decided to come on and explore this thought experiment that I did last night. We're going to get to explore that with a professional. What would have happened if the police rolled up on 34 Fairview and it was a random citizen's home of whom they were not familiar? That is what's going on. That is the purpose of this episode. And thankfully, I talked to this gentleman this evening. Hello, Phoebe. You know, we're going to say hi to everybody in the chat. But so let me just say hello before we bring on our special guest. He was at a standout for Karen Reed today up in Massachusetts. I'm going to have, hey, what's up? Miss Shorty going to be on this show Saturday with True Crime Kangaroo, Sean McDonough, Nurse Kim, Mazzamedia. We're gonna get into it, but I wanted to. Hi, how's it go? Oh, from Charleston, South Carolina. What's up, Marjorie? Ernie Birdie. How are you? Welcome, Queen. I welcome some of you. Pilgrim. I saw Pilgrim in there. Anyway, welcome everybody. And so I talked to this gentleman today, and I asked him if he would go through this thought experiment with, and it'll be edifying for both me and you, because I'll find out if what I suppose is correct, and hey, Julie, and I will find out if what I thought was not correct, because Peter knows what would have happened if police rolled up to 34 Fairview and this was a random citizen. This is going to be a quick show. We will be finished and done within 1 hour tonight. We know that our brother, Mike Crawford of the Young Jerks, is going to be on. Hey, what's up? Never forget 911. That's what's up, homegirl. I don't know if you're a New Yorker or not. I am. And so I don't know how long they're going. We're only going to go an hour. But Mark Betterow, our friend, Peter's friend, my friend, and the Young Jerks are going to be on around the same time. Hey, what's up, Scott? Welcome back. So with that, let's get started with Peter. We'll get into it. We're going to be done within an hour, and then we'll be tuning into the Young Jerks as well. So without further ado, party people, put those hands together for retired Canton PD Sergeant Peter Murphy. Yeah.
Thank you, DJ. Thank the fans. I could hear it all in the background.
Yeah, wait, hold on. I got some applause here somewhere. Where's my applause? Oh, here it is. It's down the end. Okay.
There it is.
Sergeant Peter Murphy.
All right.
Woo! All right. Thank you, Peter. So you heard, you and I talked about Young Jerks is tomorrow night. Oh, okay. If Young Jerks is tomorrow night, then here we are tonight. I thought it was tonight. I think the Young Jerks. Thank you you're a mod, obviously. Thank you, Miss Shorty. I appreciate it, love, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your views. Just to let you know, for the roundtable, since Miss Shorty is listening. So the cab roundtable, and I'm going to start. Thank you, Phoebe MC. What the cab roundtable is this. You come to the roundtable with either a topic, a question, or a hypothesis. One of those three. What you bring will be, you will present your topic, hypothesis, or question to the group. We'll go in a circular format, and everyone will have a chance to react to what your topic is. And then we'll move on to the next person. They'll present their topic. So then we'll have a free-for-all after that. But to start off with, everyone will bring a topic, question, or hypothesis to the roundtable. So anyway, so Miss Shorty, be prepared to have a topic that you want everybody to address. Anyway, let's get it kicked off. Peter, so my brother, we spoke today.
Sir, yes, sir.
Let me salute Peter and Sergeant Murphy. I'm ready for my uniform inspection. So we spoke today, Peter, about what this thought experiment is that I did by myself. Hey, Lily's in the house. That's another one of our guests for next Saturday. True Crime Kangaroo, Lily. Anyway, so Peter, what we spoke about was if we were to assume that John O'Keefe, and I think it's fairly objective at this point, that John O'Keefe was called out for a fight and he didn't want to look like a wuss, for lack of a more descriptive term that some people associate with felines. And therefore he wanted to tell Karen to take him over to that house so that he could show that he wasn't afraid. That, I think, with the finger point and the text message, the subsequent text message, I think it's fairly clear that he didn't go over. He wasn't hanging out with those guys with the. I know we love the shirt. Yeah, definitely, Julie. I think it's fairly clear that he didn't go over there. He wasn't hanging out with them with the bar. He certainly didn't want to spend his free time with those guys. He went over there for one reason, and that was to show that he wasn't afraid to turn up there. So now with that, in the morning, his body is found by Karen Reed and Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe, and then 911's called, and then we have fire, EMS, and police show up. So if they didn't know the owner of the home and they had to call and find out, or someone had to tell them, yeah, the owner of the home is person X, who is not a police officer, nor was, for the purposes of this discussion, the other person in the house who is alleged to have been involved in this, Brian Higgins, also was not a DEA agent or a law enforcement in any way. So with that, take it away. What happens next?
Well, I think initially, if we go to really the start of the whole incident, which would have been the 911 call, I would imagine that the police dispatcher and or FD, hearing the very blood-chilling, ice-cold verbiage from Jen McCabe about a body man on the lawn. It turned out we know the connection there, but just saying a man on the lawn. I took a lot of 911 calls over the 30 years that I worked. Well, we didn't have 911 for 30 years, but a lot of calls, emergency calls. And I don't think I ever took even just a scratch or a boo-boo on the knee. Never did I ever hear such a cold, almost calculating verbiage about a guy laying on a lawn. So anyway, it started there. If I was probably working, I would have dispatched the whole shift, which probably at the time was 4 officers on the street. Unfortunately, at the time, and they still might, Canton runs a little lean, so they have 4 officers on the street. They do not have a desk patrolman. They have a desk sergeant. So the sergeant is committed to the desk, takes the calls for the most part on a midnight alone, and dispatches. And if there's a serious incident or a need from a patrolman requesting a supervisor, now you got to pull one of the patrolmen off the street, leave a sector. There's 4 sectors in town, DJ. Leave the sector open, bring a patrolman in off the street, and then you suit up and start to roll in the direction of whatever area or sector you need it in. So there's a time delay there, but I think the average person, police officer, skill set trained, would have said, "What the hell is going on with that phone call? There's a guy laying on the lawn." It just didn't have the emotional, sensational, feeling to it. But anyway,
can I use a word? Can I use a word? Because it also was in trial when they spoke of Chloe the dog. It was disassociative. She wanted to disassociate, just like Brian Albert kept referring to Chloe as it. And I don't know a person that has a dog that even likes them a little bit that refers to their dog as an it. It's either a him or a her. It's very disassociative, Jennifer's terminology.
Right. So, again, logistically starting at the first base at ground zero here, that would raise some eyebrows, I think, to the average person taking the call, especially, I believe, a sergeant who took that call. Working from there, first police officer on scene would have and should have probably taken information from the three women on scene. One of them was hysterical and out of the car. Another one, I believe, was out of the car. That was Kerry Roberts, and I think Jen was still in the car making some phone calls. And anyway, I think at that point, the officer on scene should have been able to garnish enough information that he or she would have been able to make a quick assessment, coupled with the information that was provided immediately on scene, visually as well, that something wasn't in sequence here. Something didn't fit. There were some inconsistencies of the crime scene. You had the guy, the man, laying there without a hat, without winter clothing, without a winter jacket, a fairly light leisure sweatshirt on. I believe one sneaker, no hat. I don't believe any gloves. Evidently some trace blood in the snow, droplets, call it what you want. Very obvious contusions, hematoma to the face, the orbital area of his eyes, swelling, a laceration across the nose, not a major one, but obviously his face appeared to have sustained some injuries, perhaps from a fight. That would have been, I think, the read on anybody that arrived on that scene, police officer or otherwise. Does that make sense so far? Do you have any questions on where we are right now?
No, I mean, given with all that knowledge, sort of the premise we're working off of is that everything is as you said it was. But what would be what I'm trying to get to here is what would be the next behaviors? What would the police be doing next after that? So now that you saw what you just saw, they told you who this person was, and so if you can get into the mind, because some of these guys were junior officers when you left, right? These guys had just come in.
Right.
So can you amalgamate between what you would do and what you think they would have done as the final solution if this was a rando citizen that they did not know who owned the home and they came upon the scene, saw those injuries to Officer O'Keefe, and what would be the next thing that would happen relative to the homeowner, or you called the shift down, all 4 units?
Right. You bring in as many resources, police resources, as you can for what appears to be a very seriously injured person that may or may not survive the ordeal or the injuries. Probably with that call, you could have transmitted to the fire department on the 911 relay. Look at guys, there's a couple inches of snow. The fire captain going down on scene, there's a couple inches of snow. We don't know what we got, but try to maintain and preserve the crime scene. Try not to put 36 sets of footsteps all around the crime scene. See what you can do. Maybe even take a picture. Everybody's got a cell phone. Maybe even take a quick picture of what you're coming upon in case there are tire tracks or telltale footprints that would lead to a helpful investigation down the road. That would be the ideal situation. I'm not sure at 6 o'clock coming off of midnight, everybody had that thought process going, DJ, but it would have been a good situation to ask the fire department, please do what you can to preserve the footprints in the 2 inches of snow that's on the ground, because there would be nothing more important and valuable in any crime investigation than having a couple of inches of snow. I mean, you're going to get your foot patterns, tread patterns on shoes, sneakers. You could use a ruler. I know that's thinking way beyond. I guess there were no rulers at the scene that day, But
hmm
there's a lot you could have done on the scene, and the officers could have done as soon as more help arrived, and utilizing the fire department. I mean, they're trained somewhat in crime scene preservation. They know what we have to do when we arrive if they get there first. So we could have worked cooperatively on the radio and maybe got something preserved, or at least um, less compromising of the scene, and then we'd work from there. So you'd have all boots on the ground from the police department. People would be looking around, trying to make some observations. I think the apparent inconsistencies of the person on the ground, the individual on the ground, clothed in the manner or not clothed in the manner that we just described, would raise some flags. And I think the next thing you do right away is you would, again, take pictures of any footprints in the snow, and you would immediately go to the house and knock on the door to see if there were perhaps more victims. Was there a big fight inside? Is this gentleman laying on the ground got a knife in his back? Does he have a hole in his back from a bullet? What the hell went on?
hmm
If you don't know these people, there could be, innocent people injured or needing immediate medical attention inside that house, at the very least. Um, that would certainly have been something to do. Again, do a protective sweep, make sure there's no more victims, would-be victims, laying around outside, backyard. My opinion, you don't need a warrant to go in the backyard to see if there's more bodies.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so you don't. But at what point do you make the determination? First of all, thank you, Miss Shorty, for the blessing. We really appreciate the super chat, and we will get to all of those. Wait, I missed it. We will get to all the super chats and so forth at the end of the show and address each one. So thank you for any blessing that anybody feels compelled to, and we love you anyway, whether you can or you can't. Okay, Peter. So now, do you get to the point now where you have identified the victim? You've are starting to cordon off the crime scene and see how you can document what you're looking at. That it's a very difficult situation with EMS, fire, police, plus footprints of Karen, potentially Carrie Roberts, all around the scene, et cetera, et cetera. And then, actually there could be potential foot tracks of somebody who may have placed John there that are maybe deeper down beneath the surface of all the snow that fell. But all that said, and you wouldn't be able to really rake that up and clean, because if you did, it would be very obvious to investigating officers that those tracks were covered, whether it was with a snow shovel or something like that. And it also would look very suspicious at that time of night. But that notwithstanding, that would be on Ring camera videos as well. I'm curious now, at what point do you get to decide you're going to approach the door to see where the homeowner is? Because the homeowner, whom you may now know who the homeowner is, because women at the scene, Karen would have said, well, the homeowner was with us and invited us to an after party here after the Waterfall. Rando citizen named Brian Smith. So what happens now as far as approaching the home?
No, that's a very good question, valid question. And I think at that point, usually in a situation like that, once you get, officers on scene, it's usually the senior officer or the supervisory officer. But in this case, I believe it was Officer Saraf, who had 27 years on the job. So he kind of would be the lead patrolman on the scene at the time. And it would be he that would perhaps, give out some orders, some commands, say, look, you go there, you go here. DJ, you go in the house, knock on the door, see if everybody's all right, ask if they'll invite you in, start to gather some information from those people.
All right, so I'll play the homeowner and you're the police officer. So,
all right, so I ring the doorbell, knock on the door, say, sir, are you aware that there's a almost mortally wounded, injured gentleman out on your lawn? Have you
No,
seen that? Have you seen all the lights? Have you been out there? Do you know who it is? What happened? How they got there?
no, we were sleeping. I had no idea who is it.
Um, you were sleeping. You slept through the sirens. Uh, it appears, perhaps from what we saw or what we've gotten from the EMTs, that this gentleman, because we accessed his clothing and his body in the ambulance, we checked to see if there's any injuries. Could there have been a dog in the house? Were there dog prints on the outside? You start to try to develop some information, DJ, that from you.
I'm yeah. I mean, he never came in the house, so I don't know.
Okay, well, he never came in the house, and you
No,
didn't know he
sir.
was out. You didn't know he was out on the lawn.
No, sir.
Okay, it doesn't appear to us that doesn't appear to us. We don't know how he got there, and we're hoping you can give us some information. Are there people in the house right now that may need police or medical attention? Can you describe how many people in the house? Can you give us your name, your information?
Well,
How many people are in the house?
my name's Brian Smith. It's just me, my wife, and my son here now. There was, up to 10 people here last night, but he wasn't one of them. So he never came in the house.
Okay. Could I please request you, sir, to have your family members that are present in the house come downstairs so I can speak to them? Oh, by the way, sir, would you mind if I take a protective sweep through your house into your basement and upstairs just to see and make sure there are no glaring inconsistencies with what you're telling me and the fact that this gentleman out on the lawn looks like he was in a fight, and now you've just told me that there were 12 people at your house last night?
I mean, do you have a warrant?
No, I
mean,
don't, sir. I don't have a warrant right now. I'm asking for some cooperation. If you're willing to give it, that's great. If you're not, I still would like to have you bring those people forward so that I can talk to them and confirm that they're all right. If you're not willing to give me a warrant or authorization, consent, then I will apply for a warrant right away. There's just too many inconsistencies in that gentleman laying out there on the lawn, and your stories. You haven't come out. You didn't hear anything going on. You slept through it. I don't know. We've got a problem here, and I'd like you to give me consent to go through your house. If you don't have anything to hide, what should you be worried about?
I'm sorry, officer. I'm in a habit of, it's my home, and if you want to come in and see it, you're gonna have to have a warrant. But I'm and I'll get my lawyer on the phone. But no, I'm not just gonna allow you in the house. So if you come back with a warrant, then that's what you're gonna need if you want to get in the house.
Okay. Well, for now, let's just have the family members that you've mentioned are in the house. Let's have them come down here, and we'll sit everybody on the couch and see if we can come up with a solution to what's going on out there. And we'll wait for more medical updates from the personnel that are attending to the victim. And at that point, I would ensure that as the victim is boarded and put into the ambulance, that a police officer would accompany the victim to the hospital.
Okay, see.
For the obvious reasons, they could make observations of the injuries and get updates from the medical personnel as they remove clothing, cut clothing off, and if there's injuries that we're not seeing. Now at this point, you're probably going to obviously see his right arm and forearm that are going to have apparent lacerations and puncture wounds, which you could, start to ask it, the homeowner, hey, what's going on with that? Do you own a dog? This guy's looks like he's all chewed up. What's your dog's name? Do you have a dog?
Yeah,
I see a dog dish over there on the kitchen
Yeah.
floor from where I'm standing.
Yeah, I have a dog. I have a dog, Chloe. Yeah, female German Shepherd. And I'll get my wife. Honey, come down. The officer wants to ask you some questions. So, get her down there. Thank you very much, Tiger, for the tip. We greatly appreciate it. If you end up having Julie has some questions too. So we got to get Julie in. Julie is our cab chat moderator. So we got to get her in there. So we'll break character for a second, Peter, and then we'll go. We're doing good I think we could have taken acting over at Dean College. So we could have taken dramatic arts instead of law enforcement. So, all right. So was Chloe ever outside, out front, alone, or accompanied for outies? They had a fenced-in backyard, is what I know, Jules. I don't know if Peter knows something else, and I think Julie had another question up there. Do you know anything about Chloe and how they kept her or anything? Or
You're speaking to me?
yes, sir.
Okay, I believe over the course of the last year and a half, I've heard that Chloe enjoyed the fenced-in backyard, and that they would let Chloe out to do business, perhaps before retiring for the evening and so forth. Chloe, I believe, had a history of not socializing well with other dogs and people, and I don't believe they made a habit of letting Chloe run loose or anything, which would be a violation of leash law out front. So I think Chloe was pretty much confined to the backyard, and
Yeah.
and again, I'd like to see Chloe, like to see your family, that they're safe.
Mhm.
And
Oh, we're back in character. Okay.
and,
I just want.
and we're still in my mind, I'm still working on getting a consent or a reason for exigent circumstances to go through that house. Quickly.
Absolutely. I mean,
I'm not going to be
probable
looking in
cause.
drawers for contraband. I'm looking for bodies. I'm looking for blood.
Yeah.
I'm looking for baseball bats. I'm looking for anything that could have caused the trauma to that gentleman that's laying out in the lawn. Maybe where his other sneaker and his hat might be.
And 3 liters of blood, as you pointed out
Correct.
in the last show.
Correct.
Adroitly. So Julie's asking, how has Canton handled similar historic person dying on a lawn? And oh boy, do we have a Mr. Casey who died on a lawn and was not found until later. Julie, the answer is yes. It happened not that long ago. Was it Craig Casey? What was his name? Craig Casey?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, yes, there is precedent for this, Julie. I don't want to go into it now because that is a whole story in itself. But, yes, there was a man tragically found dead on a lawn in Canton that the police did not initially found, and then found him after the fact, or a citizen called in and said, "Did you guys know there was a body here?" So, yes, Craig Casey. All right, Peter. So now, so do they have to allow you in to interview the family, or can they keep you at the front door?
Again, I would stay at the front door. I'd ask to come
Okay.
in, unless you have exigent circumstances that are immediately apparent. You would try to get consent. Would make it a lot cleaner as you go through the morning or go through the interview. Again, if somebody's not going to invite you in, it raises all sorts of issues immediately, and
Okay.
you'd work from there. You'd try to navigate and develop as much as you could, so that either there'd be consent, or you'd have, again, exigent circumstances. I think if the police officer had gone in the ambulance, because that is basically a continuation of the crime scene,
Yeah.
as they cut clothing off to assess injuries, and found the head laceration at some point soon into the intervention, that there would have been some obvious reasons, looking at that arm, to go further as to where's the dog and what's going on here. And if you didn't know that guy, you didn't know who he is, and he never came in the house, are you telling me that you let the dog out to do its business, and he attacked the dog? He or she, Chloe, attacked that man on the lawn? Did you see that happen? Did you hear the growls? Did you see the bites? Are there dog paws all around where his body was? You could start to shoot some holes in whatever their alibi that the homeowner may have, if they have some complicity in the incident.
So, I think what we should do now is press the fast forward button, and I'm going to ask you some questions that are going to lead us to the next scenario where you and I will act this out and have some fun with this. So how long would it have taken you to get a warrant to get in the house?
How long to get a warrant?
How long to get a warrant to get in the house?
How long to get a warrant? Yeah. I knew you'd like that.
Yes.
Well, with a little probable cause, speaking to the clerk or the magistrate at 6:30 in the morning, an experienced officer with some observations and updates from the medical staff in the ambulance that the gentleman had dog bites on his arm, what appeared to be, or at least had been in some kind of hand-to-hand combat and/or dog bites. I would tend to believe that there'd be a consideration to give you a warrant to go in that house.
Within how many hours do you think?
As soon as you can reach the magistrate, I mean, they'll usually say, send a cruiser up, or we'll fax it to the station. It could have happened within a half an hour or 45 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay, so everybody out there that's in the chat right now, there's a few hundred of you watching right now. Peter has said potentially within a half an hour to 45 minutes, given the circumstances. You have a Boston police officer that was found alive on the lawn, but then was pronounced dead. Do we know that the time of death when he was it was obviously not in the ambulance? It would have been after he was received at ER.
My understanding on that is that there is some sort of a protocol that they cannot pronounce a person deceased until the body temperature is brought up to a certain elevated temp. And I believe his body temperature was, don't quote me, it was in the low 80s, yep. 80 degrees or something.
Yep.
And that would have been another reason to send a police officer, because in the ambulance, there was clothing, there was evidence, and there could have been a dying declaration had they swaddled him in enough warm clothes or heated insulated blankets that, I mean, you don't know, but he conceivably could have had a dying declaration once his body temp came up and indicated who was responsible for that. Not saying that he was, I'm just posturing that as some scenario that could have conceivably happened. I've worked on cases before where there were mortally injured people, and we sent the police officer all the way to Boston to, I think it was Boston Medical Center, rode with the victim in case the victim regained consciousness, and or to collect evidence and take notes and comments from the attending EMS people. It's part of the crime scene. It's part of the crime scene, except it's in an ambulance going somewhere.
Yeah, so we don't know the time of death, but we can assume. But could you have gotten the warrant from Canton PD even before the Mass State Police got involved? Could you have gotten the warrant just based on him being potentially mortally wounded on the lawn and unresponsive? Would that have been enough to get the search warrant without his actual, him being pronounced dead? Sorry to put it that way. I don't know.
No, that's okay. I'll try to work through it with my knowledge. I would say that the reason for the warrant is to garnish evidence of the crime, and the crime appeared to be, seemed to take on almost immediately in some people's eyes more than a motor vehicle accident. It appeared to be an assault and battery. So an act of violence. So again, going back to what I've said so far with you already, at some point you can argue that there could have been other victims in the house or out back. And maybe, at some point they learned through ID or a wallet that was in his pocket and maybe a badge or an ID that this guy was a police officer. Maybe at some point I ask you, what do you do for work? And you tell me you're a Boston police officer in charge of a fugitive apprehension unit. That would obviously lead more questions in my mind as to whether or not this was some sort of a retaliatory hit on the house and this guy got in the way. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that you would begin to ask questions about as to what's going on here.
But okay,
on the warrant issue, to clear that up. Again, you're looking for fruits or instrumentalities of the crime. So whether he had just passed and was deceased, or whether he was just severely beaten and unconscious, it still appeared that based on the 3-inch or 2.5-inch laceration in the back of his skull, the facial wounds, hematoma, what appeared to be dog bites,
Yep. The defensive hand wounds on his hands,
blocking, yeah, black and
punches.
blues or punch
Hmm.
fractures. Just the totality of the circumstances. There was, there was evidence that this was just not somebody that fell out of the bay of a C-130 landing in Logan Airport.
All right, so that's a stitch back. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Sarah in Shonkenhara. I don't know how you came up with that name, Sarah. You're gonna have to tell me on Twitter, DM or whatever, or on Twitter. I would love to hear about that. Conversation is awesome. Thank you so much for that. First of all, for your kindness and blessing, and for the comments about Peter and myself. I know he's a great mind with me, and I think it's still in question. So anyway, thank you very much. If you would, as Miss Shorty said, if you would please hit the like button on your YouTube, we would greatly appreciate that. As she said, for the algorithm, we're hoping this is going to be the first year that we can pay for all the software that we use to make the show. Peter saw me getting a Canva tutorial to make the artwork for the show from Money Nathan, the co-creator of Calling All Beings, and my partner who started the show with me. There's four of us, and so we use about 4 pieces of software to make the show. And this year might be the first one where we're going to get it paid for, which is going to be awesome. Anyway, so Peter. So we're going to assume that we could get that warrant, and now the reason I'm going to fast forward is I'm going to assume that with the warrant, if you got in there with some sort of a CSI team, they would not have been able to clean up 3 liters of blood, and it would have been discovered, and that would have basically been the beginning of the end of the question of whether or not he was hit by a car or whether the injuries occurred inside the home, and then that part of the case is over. Is that a fair assumption on my part?
It certainly is. Yeah, it certainly is. And I would suggest to you that it's a cumulative process of building probable cause to do an immediate search or exigent search, declare exigent circumstances or something along those lines, protective sweep. And, if there were chairs knocked over or, my observation was that it looked like there was even an odor of cleaning fluids or bleach. For somebody who slept through all the excitement out in the front lawn, what did they have, a cleanup party, with mops and stuff after everybody left at 1:30?
I'm sure they did.
Clean the foot. Well, I'm going on the generic side. Did everybody get a mop and not everybody, but the homeowners, a mop and a pail, and wipe the snow spots and dirty shoe marks off the tile floor in the kitchen? Was that bleach coming from somewhere else? And you'd work diligently to get into that basement or through the house to make sure there's no other victims. And depending on mannerisms, training, and experience, you'd roll with that and do the best you can. If it ends up in a case law Supreme Court and it gets thrown out, or some of that evidence gets thrown out, well, so be it. You did the best you could, and you did get a warrant eventually through probable cause and testimony or a affidavit, and off you go.
So the case ends. The case ends there against Karen Reed, right there. So we have to move on to the next investigative steps that places him inside the home. So what would be in terms of so let's go into the interview room, and now we've got the 2 Bryans that are in there, although their last names have been changed to protect the guilty. So we have the two. Now that we've got the warrant, we have got probable cause to bring in all of the suspects, and they're all in separate rooms. So you've got the video because they said they were at the Waterfall, and you got the video at the Waterfall. So I can play one of the Bryans, and you're the interrogator. and we're in an interrogation room, and now the Mass State Troopers are involved. So it's Trooper X is the one who is doing the interviews, and I'll be whichever Brian that you want.
Okay, so just can you give me a approximate timeline on this as to where we are on this interview stage right now?
So now you've got all this. So what if you had all that CSI stuff? I guess I don't know that you would necessarily, but you're still going to get the waterfall video, and you're still going to get the ring camera videos, because they're going to say he never entered the house. So you're going to get all those ring camera videos, including the one from then, I guess, Lieutenant Kelleher at the time. Was he lieutenant or deputy chief at the time?
I'm not 100% sure. I believe he was a lieutenant at the time of the incident on January 29th, 22.
Okay, so he's then Lieutenant Kelleher. You're going to get his video, and it's going to show John O'Keefe exiting the car. And would the angle show the front door from, if you can kind of picture where his home is, do you think that video would have shown him actually getting to the front door from the angle?
I can only speculate on that depending on the angle of his camera, which was apparently fairly high above the door jamb from what I saw in pictures, that it would have projected out considerably towards the street. I'd be speculating totally if I said to you that it would have covered the front lawn or the driveway or the mailbox without actually seeing what he had for a setting. And but I would say this, that if we're developing, trying to implement some preservation of the crime scene, which would be our major concern once we get there, there'd be enough boots on the street with our own shift, and I would have, or somebody should have at that point, the officer in charge at the time, which I believe would have been the sergeant. But however, he did communicate at some point with the lieutenant across the street to get the infamous solo cups and the stop and shop bag, I guess. So somebody should have taken command in the administrative level, command staff, and called the chief and probably called the board of selectmen, chairman of the selectmen, and say, look, we got a serious incident, just keeping you apprised of what we got. I'm going to bring the whole department in. I'll recall totally everybody to the police station until this, case either unfolds or we get more information. We need to go door to door to get ring camera. We got to go to Waterfall, get their footage, because the homeowner has told us that they were there and at CF McCarthy's perhaps before they got to the 34 Fairview. So there would have been a multitude of information that should have been, started to be looked at, and you would have needed a lot of personnel to do that. So a recall of all the personnel to the police department, have a briefing. Chief, deputy chief should have been at the police station, I would suggest, and also the lieutenant across the street could have taken command of the scene until Lieutenant Gallagher got there. There's just as somebody you think said, if there was anything that you ever wanted to do in a crime scene, that to make it totally unacceptable, they did it or didn't do it.
This is really funny from Canetto in terms of us playing the role. Canetto says, "Can I play Chloe?" Yes. Woof, woof. If you can bark. I don't know how we can find fun in this, but because this really is tragic, the loss of John O'Keefe. But I guess with the amount of coverage and the amount of focus that we're putting on this, we have to try to find some levity while maintaining that we want justice for John O'Keefe. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get that unless Karen Reed is free. Somebody in the chat, Turtle Boy, and I know a lot of you watch Turtle Boy quite often and are tracking everything that he puts out. He has said how many ring cameras are within that span of the street that he believes should had some visibility on the crime scene. So if anybody knows that, but there is a certain number, I don't know if Peter knows that number, but I would suggest that somebody would have a view that would probably show the front door, and that's really all we need. We just need a view of their front door, and you could see John O'Keefe in his clothing entering the front door, and you would see him. If you didn't see him exit the car because the car was blocking him, you would have seen when he more than likely walked past the vehicle and down the driveway and up the walk to the door. So that's what I would suggest.
Correct.
Let's have some fun though with some interrogation, because you're gonna get him in the interrogation eventually room. So why don't we do? I think these guys would probably think it's fun to hear you interrogate Brian at the barracks. So tell me how that would go, and I'll play the bad guy.
Okay, I guess I've got to reiterate my question just so I kind of know where I'm going with these questions. Approximately what time of day is this? In other words, sometime around 0800 hours, there was a command decision from the Canton police hierarchy that they were going to recuse themselves from the case and turn it over to the state police.
Yeah.
Can we agree on that?
Yeah, let's agree on that.
Okay.
So now you have to put yourself as a trooper.
Okay, but having said that, I'm still going to put myself with the Canton police patch on my shoulder because of the reason that that it's still a crime scene in my jurisdiction, the town of Canton.
Yep.
And I don't care whether I recuse myself as an investigator in it. God damn it, there's a police officer who apparently isn't going to live. And at this point, I may even know that it happened in another police officer's property at this point, or at least the body was found there. You don't abandon that just because you recuse yourself. You don't, and I'm being perhaps crass on this, you don't walk away from a murder. You close the street, you protect the crime scene the best you can. You get every means you can available in the way of whether it's tarps or whatever. Try to save the scene. I'm going to suggest that it was the Canton police who at some point indicated that they taped off the area or roped off the area, but the wind was blowing the rope down, and that they at some point got a leaf blower to start looking for evidence of the crime. Now, this was still Canton police, DJ. This was not the state police, and I believe it was sometime between. I'm going to say, I don't know. I forget the exact time. There's so much data on this, but between the time that Lieutenant Gallagher showed up, who had a top or something in his truck, and arrived on scene, and then they recused themselves. There was some leaf blowing. There was some evidence garnishing in the 6 solo cups. There was a Stop and Shop bag. And then I believe there was, at some point, Officer Lank, I guess he was a sergeant at the time, he took command or possession of that evidence bag with the blood droplets. And his testimony was he went back to the police station and put it in a secure, refrigerated, temporary evidence vault, knowing that it was going to go to the state police because Canton was recusing themselves. Well, lo and behold, that bag shows up under the bumper of a Lexus, opened for plain view.
Like maybe that's how blood was transferred. I don't know.
Let your conscience be your guide, my friend. I don't know, but
let me
the point
just
I'm
put,
making is, before we get to the state police, which was your original question, there's a timeline between the ambulance run to the hospital, more officers on scene, the evidence coming from across the street from Kelleher's house, and then the arrival of Gallagher, who had to go to the station first, I guess, and get some gear. And then the leaf blower brigade started with Sean Good, Sergeant Good, and Lieutenant Gallagher. And then at some point, I believe they cleared and Lank did too, I believe, sometime between 8:30 and 9. And then I believe Lank went back to the house, having been recalled by Jen McCabe, because she suddenly had a recollection of statements that were made by the operator of the vehicle. And Lank, I believe, and it was Sean Good, I believe, gained entry to the house openly. They invited them in, and they sat there
sure.
sometime around 9 o'clock, I believe, and took another statement. And then sometime after 9, Canton abandoned the scene, left, just drove away, just left Dodge. Apparently
Until
didn't put anybody. I mean, they could have posted somebody there until they were duly relieved by the state police. Whether the state police said they were coming right away or they hadn't been told it was a murder yet.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I had state police come to my scenes, and as I said, there was an officer going to the hospital with a patient that was still alive. It had not been deemed a homicide yet, but you know, the crime scene, and especially with the word recused, you need to bring in the replacement agency right away. If they say they're not coming, I've never ever heard.
Yeah, then you stay at the scene.
We're not coming until the person dies. So if that's the way they want to run it, if that's the way DA Morrissey's office handles crime scenes, then you post Canton police officers around strategic locations, close the street, tell the plow guy, you know, come down to a certain distance, back up and plow back up the other way. But, you know, we're going to leave this place intact. You're not going to plow across the street. There may be evidence here.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that they bungled this on purpose because, as you pointed out, or actually, so we don't have Nurse Kim here to read this one, but this is a great one. Can you read that?
Do you want me to read something?
Yeah, read that one from Lily.
Yep.
Loser. We need Nurse Kim to say loser because there's no one that's going to say it with a better accent than Nurse Kim. Loser. But anyway, so all right, these guys want to hear us do some role play, so you're going to have to interrogate. Are you ready? Do you have your angry face on to interrogate, or I don't know if you're going to play good cop or bad cop, and I'll play Brian.
No, I'm ready to roll with this. I just want to communicate one thing, and I communicated this today at the standout in Dedham. We have seen over the course of this investigation comments. We've seen signs. We've seen people dressed up in different garb, representing certain players, whether it be the judge or whoever. Today, somebody showed up at the standout dressed as a fisherman with a sign of District Attorney Morrissey, bring in the feds, and had this thing hanging from a fishing pole. And there were also a couple of strong supporters, diligent advocates of Karen Reed's innocent, that were dressed up in skeletons and mentioned. So the point of my story is, although there appeared to be some lack of seriousness here, there isn't anybody that comes to these standouts, and there isn't anything that you and I are going to say tonight that down deep inside of our heart and soul, we know this is a serious, tragic situation, and that there are a lot of people suffering. Both families are suffering, and they've both lost loved ones. And so no matter the role playing that you and I go through in the next 10 minutes or an hour, whatever it is, you and I can project to the audience that we take this very, very, very seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I was trying to, and maybe this is a good time to say this. What I was trying to accomplish with role play was not to make light of what happened.
It's
agree. Really in case anyone in the audience is unclear, it's really to give people an idea of what would have happened were it not an infamous law enforcement officer from Boston who owned the home in which the crime occurred.
Right.
That was the purpose of this, is so that people would understand what would have happened and how it would have been handled. It wouldn't have been handled on the sofa at Jen McCabe's home with 5 or 6 people that had all their stories already worked out, telling the same story, nodding their heads at each other. It would have been, you go to this room, you go to this room, you go to this room, you go to this room. And that's probably happening within hours of his body being discovered on the lawn. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. I also want to get something in here from Please Pass the Pepper. First of all, thank you for, I believe you connected with me. I don't know if it was on YouTube or Twitter, but thank you very much. So Mrs. Bryan was cleaning you might have to help me out with this one, per testimony of all there. Why keep saying this on the stand? I didn't see the significance then. If you would clarify that, because I want to get your point and get it answered, but I don't quite understand. If you could just retype that, I'll get it, unless somebody else gets it and I don't. So, but we will get it answered for you. And thank you very much for that blessing. Peter, so we're into interrogation now. We're here. And would you let me know, we're in the interrogation room, which Brian do you want to interrogate first? The one who had the altercation at the call out from the Waterfall, or the homeowner?
I would like to interrogate. I'd like to have perhaps two officers interrogate both of them in different locations.
Okay.
Just because of the significance that they both. A good interrogation could take 45 minutes to an hour. I think, again, if we can get more information, develop more information from both of them in different settings, different interrogation rooms, we can benefit from that in a more timely manner.
Okay, let's start out with Higgy Poo. I'll be Higgy Poo, and you and go ahead. Here we go.
All right.
I'm ready.
All right. So I would basically ask Higgy Poo, Mr. Higgy Poo, can you tell me, please, about last evening? What your day involved yesterday, starting early morning of the 28th. Can you tell me about your day, what it involved, where you went, where you came from, and where you eventually ended up before you went back to the home party, after party from the bar that you were drinking at? And could you give me all the information you can on that? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was watching the Patriots game, having a few beers, and then that night I went out to the Waterfall with my friend Brian Albert. Was invited out there, and there was a whole group of people there, and we ended up there, have a few beers, and relax.
Okay. Would you find it shocking, Higgy, that we have had somebody go to the Waterfall? We had them open up early, and we have a video showing pretty much what transpired inside of that bar up until an hour plus or minus around the closing time. Would that surprise you that we have already obtained that information?
You know what, officer, trooper, I have nothing to hide here. Yeah, I went. I was at the Waterfall, and everybody seemed to get along, having a good time. It was really nothing, nothing to it.
Okay. Would it surprise you that it appeared to me, in my training and experience, that you were posturing and gesturing across the room to another party with a pointed finger, indicating that you had a problem with that person and you were willing to try to settle it either right there on site or rectify it sooner than later, that there was a problem, there was friction, there was hostility? What would you say to that, with your pointing of the finger over the top and somebody intervening to say, apparently, calm down, not here?
I don't see that as hostile. I mean, I was just pointing over there. I was joking around, and it wasn't hostile. It was just like a little bit of trash talk. It's nothing serious. I didn't have anything against the guy. We were, friends basically.
Okay. Have you had any kind of, how long have you known that person you were pointing at? How long have you known the homeowner? Can you explain your relationship with them, and get into some detail on that.
Well, the victim I know in a couple of years. We were introduced by somebody, I don't remember who. The homeowner, Brian Albert. We've been friends for, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. We've been friends for quite a while.
I see. Okay. So your statement would be that the how would we call it, the antics of two guys shadow boxing prior to this finger pointing, and playing some sort of grab ass in the forefront of the bar area, and then the pointing over the top at closing time, sort of being intercepted by another party. You're indicating that's just normal, that everybody in the bar probably did that before they left to go home too. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I didn't see anybody else doing that, but it's just a little bit of grab ass. This is something that Brian and I do all the time. This is normal. It's nothing. There's nothing much to it. It's just the way that me and Brian get together, have a few drinks, and just a little bit of grab ass.
Okay, all right. Did you happen to know the female that was in the forefront too, in the direction that you were pointing in? Did you happen to know who she is, and was there any involvement with her in the past, or any animosity between you and the other parties that would indicate why you were pointing over the top as you were?
I just got to break character for a second. Hello, Microdots. Welcome back in, and we're big fans of your work. Now we got to go back into character here. Yeah, I know her. We've exchanged some texts, and but yes, nothing serious. But yeah, we've had a few texts, and some interest there.
I see interest there, like mutual interest between the two of you. When was the last time you guys?
Yeah, I think so.
You and she may have texted.
Yeah, I think I texted her that night. I'm not sure, but I think I texted her that night.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, you can assume that at some point, if you're not willing to turn over your phones, that we're gonna seek to get them and find out exactly what was said and what texts and times went out. You understand that? I don't know if you'd be willing to hand over your phone, but I guess I'm asking you for it at some point right now.
Yeah, I'm not giving up my phone. I have nothing to hide here. I didn't do anything. I had nothing to do with her. I had nothing to do with O'Keefe. And unless you have a warrant for my phone, I'm not giving it to you.
Well, I don't have a warrant to open your phone and listen to your phone and look at your phone, but I probably could get a warrant to seize your phone and put it in safekeeping until we can get further warrants to expose what's in your phone. And if you're not willing to go that route, I'll ask you to put your phone on the table, and we'll apply for that warrant right now as well.
All right. There's my phone. You get a warrant, and then you can look at it. Other than that, I'm taking it back.
Okay, let's see what we can do with the magistrate if we can get the paperwork.
All right, that's pretty good. That was pretty good, Peter. All right, so do you want to do a quick Brian Albert, and then we'll close out the show? We don't have a whole lot of time here, but no, I'm sorry, Miss Shorty. I'm doing it. It takes some work to do a Boston accent, and all of our friends and fans here, and I don't want to do an. Oh man, I lost Peter. Oh my God. Hopefully, here he's back. He's back. Okay, there he is. Peter's back. I don't want to do it in injustice. I would love Peter to try to ham up his accent a little bit and maybe do a Brian Albert. We would welcome to the house with open arms. Isn't that what he said? If John O'Keefe came, we'd welcome him with open arms. I love that. I think Turtle Boy did a good impression of Brian Albert saying that. That was really funny. All right. I didn't hang up on Peter, Sarah. It wasn't me.
No, I don't know what that glitch was. I didn't touch anything. Yeah. It was a quick glitch in the transmissions between us.
They hacked Sean, but they haven't got into us yet.
No, they haven't got us yet.
Yeah, the base has a good firewall here. All right, so anyway, so do you want to do a little bit of Brian Albert and then we'll close it out?
Whatever you want. This is your rodeo.
Okay.
Sure.
No, I mean, I just, because we established you were going to get all the Ring camera videos, you were going to get that stuff, and then you really just needed to see if you could get some sort of corroboration or confession out of these guys. Because you would have had, by now, you would have had the warrant, you would have had the CSI data that probably would have turned some things up, you would have had the videos, and then you would have just been interviewing these guys and see what you could get them to talk about, including all those folks that were at the house, like Jennifer McCabe. Who would you rather enter? Would you rather do Jen McCabe or would you do Brian Albert if you wanted to do an interview?
We'll take. I think initially you said the two Brians, so if we want,
let's do Brian Albert.
Do Brian.
Okay, and remember, this is not this is not the law enforcement officer, because if it is, then we know what happens. This interview never happens because it didn't happen. So this is going to be Brian, but it won't be the seasoned law enforcement officer who has well-crafted answers for everything and knows the drill, so to speak. So, all right, let's go ahead.
All right. So I want to thank you, Brian, for coming down to the barracks to conduct this interview with us. Can I get you coffee? Make yourself comfortable here. Do you want a water? I'd like to ask you some questions. Yeah,
thank you. This is horrible what happened here. This is terrible. But yeah, thank you. It's not a problem.
Okay. Can you relate to me what you were conducting for business or leisure time from early morning of the 28th until right now, this time of this interview? Can you relate to me where you went, who you were with, what you were doing?
So me breaking character, I don't know what the events of Brian's day were leading up to the Waterfall. So I'll mea culpa on that. So I'm going to start at the Waterfall.
That's fine.
Just kind of like I didn't know what Higginbotham was doing. I didn't know what Higgy Poo was doing prior to that. So here we are. So that evening, I invited a bunch of our friends out. My niece, her husband, my friend Brian, my brother Chris, and a bunch of us went to the Waterfall to just relax and have some beers.
Okay. Do you have any idea approximately what time you got there and what time you would have left?
So I don't know, mea culpa on, I don't know what time that they arrived. So forgive me if anybody in the chat or if Peter knows, do you know what time they arrived and what time they left?
I'd be guessing without my notes in front of me. So we'll just go with, do you know approximately what time it was that you guys were leaving the bar?
And I want to say they must have left around midnight. Did the bar close at midnight?
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's close enough.
Okay. Yep. And around midnight. Yep.
Okay. And so you were leaving the bar. Before you left the bar, did you have conversation with any other people that you are familiar with or friends of yours that you may have invited to the bar or inadvertently bumped into there?
Another officer there was John O'Keefe. I should have said that. Friend, Officer John O'Keefe, his girlfriend Karen, my niece, Carrie Roberts, Brian Higgins, my brother. So there was a lot of people there. And then we ended up having, I invited people over for an after party.
Okay. Would you say that the evening was amicable between all the parties that were there? We can get into the how long you've known everybody and the who's who and the what's, but for right now, I'd like to know what was your feeling about that evening as it was closing down? Was everybody amicable? Were there any problems or hostilities between anybody?
Not at all. Everybody was having a good time. It was relaxing. I didn't sense any animosity there at all.
Okay. Has there ever been any animosity in the past with the gentleman that we later, I guess, identified as now the decedent? Any problems with him in your past?
Never. He was a junior officer. Well, in this case, we got to pretend he's not a police officer. But, or maybe for the purposes of this, we could pretend that actually Brian Albert was a police officer, but you were actually doing your job and interrogating him. So in this case, because we never get to the interrogation because he was a cop. But for this purpose, we could pretend that actually Peter Murphy was on duty and says, no, we're going to prosecute this case properly. And he actually does do an interview where Brian Albert is alone in a room and Brian Higgins is alone in a room, irrespective of what their position is. So we could actually attack this a different way. So he was a junior officer in the department. Nice kid. Never had any problems with him.
Okay. All right. The other patrons that had accompanied you as part of this group at the Waterfall, would you say that they're all friends to some varying degrees or acquaintances, or how would you describe the people that you just related to me who were there, family and friends of yours?
Yeah, some was close family. Some of them were more like friends, and others were more like acquaintances. Like Karen, is more like an acquaintance.
I see. Okay. Would it be out of the realm of possibility to suggest to you that there may be some ring camera footage on the street that we have already garnished and had a chance to look at? Did you have a ring camera that was functioning? Did the gentleman across the street, who you must know, Kelleher, did he have a ring camera? Do you know anybody else on the street that has ring cameras? You're a pretty high profile police officer. I guess we're identifying you as a police officer now. Yep. You must have some home security. Apparently you had I've been told you have a German Shepherd. We'll talk about that. Any ring camera information that you can provide to me? Would you mind if I asked you to look at yours?
So breaking character right now. If anyone knows whether or not Brian had a ring camera or not, if anyone in the chat, that he did have one, Peter?
I can tell you that the story I believe he testified to was that he got a ring camera for Christmas, but he hadn't put it on his house yet. I've heard contraindications to that.
Okay. All right. So it's unclear. So I'll deny that I have the ring camera.
Okay.
I don't have a ring camera on my house, Officer Murphy, but as to the neighbors, I can't speak to what ring camera footage they may or may not have.
I see. Okay. All right. So do you recall any kind of hostilities or grab ass at the bar area where you might have been posturing that you were having some sort of a wrestling match or some sparring using your hands? Are you trained in self-defense or boxing at all, sir?
Yeah, I'm an amateur boxer.
Amateur boxer?
Yeah.
No, amateur. Okay. All right. And that means what if you're an amateur boxer? Do you compete in boxing in gyms and so forth, or you just you just do it to maintain your skill set because of your job?
Mostly sparring. I've had a few boxing matches here and there, but I would say mostly sparring.
I see. Okay. I noticed that you didn't take your gloves off, and it's pretty warm in here. Is there a reason for that?
The sweat. No, I usually, is that for the sweaty hands? Is that why the gloves? What's that question for, Peter? We got to break character for a second.
Are you hiding some damaged knuckles?
Oh, wow. That's why. This is the reason why Peter was a police officer for 34 years.
Everybody's a suspect until proven innocent.
Yeah. So at that point, that would be really interesting to keep the gloves on, especially if he had like lightweight leather gloves, something that wouldn't look like ski gloves, inside that wouldn't be too obvious that, okay, why are you wearing ski gloves inside? Really interesting. So you would make them take the gloves off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I removed, I'll remove my gloves.
Okay. All right. For the benefit of the conversation, we'll just say that the doesn't appear that there's any damage to your hands at this point. To move the conversation.
Okay.
So okay, you had a bunch of people over to the house. There was some kind of a party at your house before you returned there from the waterfall. What was the age group of the people that were there? Why were they there? And how many of them stayed? And how long did they stay?
I may need help on this. I believe there's 10 people there, if I'm not mistaken. My nephew, somebody's going to have to help me with this because I don't have all the names of all the folks. I know the nephew was there at one point. I'm not sure if Caitlin Albert was there or if she was called to come pick up Colin Albert. I believe Carrie was there at some point. Sarah Levinson, I believe, was there. Obviously, Jen was there. Brian Albert Jr. may have been there. Obviously, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins. And there's quite a slew of people there. Julie Nagel, I'm getting there. Jen and Matt, both were there. Thank you. So it looks like Brian Albert Jr., 2 girlfriends, Colin was leaving, and the McCabe's. Thank you, everybody. And someone said the bagel. So I like the bagel. These people are so funny, Peter. They're so funny, man. Someone put hurt shoulder pulling Chloe off. Julie's really gotten into this case, I think, since this started. She's Allie McCabe picked up Colin, not Caitlin Albert. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I am, if there's an area of weakness on this case, it is a lot of those ancillary players. So I do have some weaknesses there. So let's just assume I named off everybody who was there for the sake of the discussion.
Okay. What I'd like to do at this time, Mr. Albert, is just revisit the waning moments at the bar. As you know, you were a police officer, obviously, and so is Mr. Higgy, who we have also conducted an interview with. Would you find it out of the norm that you guys were posturing some sort of boxing, and also that there appeared to be some hostility or animosity generated from Mr. Higgy in the direction of what appeared to be John O'Keefe, or at least the decedent? Would you comment on that, please? How did you interpret that?
I didn't see it as animosity. And as far as me and Higgins, it was a little bit of grab ass and nothing more. I didn't see hostility between anyone at the bar that night.
Okay. All right. And you're aware that we're probably asking Agent Higgy the same questions that we're asking you. We're just trying to get information as to how a gentleman ended up on your front lawn and you didn't know anything about it. And apparently it was sometime after a party. Had you invited this gentleman back to your house? And did he come in the house? Did you see him come in the house?
He never came in the house. I did not invite him, but Higgins did invite him.
I see. Okay. The reason you just did or didn't have a reason to invite him, or you opted not to invite him?
We're not that close. I didn't think to invite him, but he would have been welcome to my house with open arms.
Okay. Have you had
occasions
in the past to have social settings, having beers or something at other establishments in the town, perhaps, where there's pictures taken of you in the last week or so, everybody together, Chris Albert, you, John, and Higgy?
I have.
Okay. All right. So do I. Go So have I, is the right word. Okay, well, I guess moving right on. So can you tell me what happened approximately? He didn't come in. Um, did you
He
see
did not.
Karen's car there? Did you hear that she had come by? Were there phone calls being made from inside your house by family members asking, where are you?
I did not see her car, and I did not see John come in the house at all.
Okay.
I don't know if somebody else saw her, but I did not see her.
Okay. All right. Um, so let's fast forward to sometime after 600 hours in the morning. Um, where were you? What were you doing at that time? What time did you go to bed? What time did you and Nicole retire for the evening?
Must have been around 2:30. I went to bed. My wife and I were having relations, and I fell asleep, and I didn't wake up until after I heard all this happen.
I see. Would it refresh your memory if I told you that I think Jen McCabe came running into the bedroom or something, or said something had happened outside? Um,
I
sometime shortly after 6 o'clock in the morning when all the emergency vehicles were there.
Yes, I remember. I remember that. I
Oh,
remember.
okay. But
Yes.
you didn't go outside. You didn't see anything. You didn't find a need to go out into the front yard where this incident took place, and where it was being dealt with by a multitude of personnel. You never left your house to go out there
It's
to
not. It's
investigate.
not.
As a police officer, an inherent curious person by trade, you didn't see a need to go out there.
It's not my crime scene. It's not my jurisdiction. It's not my crime scene. I stayed out of it.
I understand you were perceptive enough to know that it's not your crime scene to investigate, but I guess my question is, would it have been the norm for somebody, regardless of their profession, to at least go out and check on what appeared to be, at this point, perhaps your knowledge that this was a friend of yours, or at least somebody that was invited back to your house that night? Just saying.
Officer, I was asleep. My sister-in-law comes running in the bedroom, yelling, "I'm just waking up." And before you know it, every all the emergency vehicles are gone, and that was it. I didn't take it as anything else. I was waiting to hear what happened. My brother's an officer in Canton, and I figured he would call me and tell me what happened.
Okay. And that brother is, what is his name and what is his rank on the police department?
Detective Kevin Albert.
Okay. And did you have any conversation, or did you see Kevin Albert in the course of the Saturday leading up to and or after midnight on the 29th? Did you see him, have any conversation with him?
Not until after this happened. Not
Which
until
was
the next day.
the next day. I see. Okay. What type of car would your brother drive, Kevin Albert?
I think he has a Ford Edge. I think, don't recall, but I think that's what he's driving.
I see. Okay. Ford Edge. Any determination on what color that might be?
I don't remember what color it is. Is it a gray? And somebody help me in the chat if we know what color the Ford Edge was on that. Was it a sand color? Somebody help me if they know. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
That's right. So, as
Tan.
you know,
Thank you. Thank you, Lily. It's awesome. Thank you, Lily.
as you know from your training and experience as a police officer, at this point, we're just trying to gather information, collect information as to what may have taken place that has led to the death of Officer John O'Keefe. And at this point, we're just trying to get as much information as we can. We haven't focused on anybody yet, but you can imagine that we are going to be due diligent as far as getting all the Ring cameras, trying to develop as much information as we can from phones, from Celebrite, from Geo, any means possible that we can try to figure out what's going on here, either before or after we procure warrants and go into these phones. So you understand where I'm coming from. You understand what's going on, and you understand where this might end up. And I would suggest to you that we're just looking for cooperation at this point in time. So let's continue with the interview.
All right. Let's, Peter, I'm going to tell you what, nobody wants to be in the hot seat with you because, man, that was difficult, man. And I didn't have answers to a lot of these great questions that you asked. So that was absolute fire, man. Where would you have gone next? I'm going to break character here because we're getting past, we're almost at the hour and a half mark. Where would you have gone next with them?
I just would have pressured him, more and more and more on the evening, leaving the bar, revisiting conversations about the posturing. I just would have tried to bring it up in case I could get him with an inconsistency or a variation in what he was telling me. And obviously worked on the fact that it was probably going to be in his best interest to tell as much of the truth as he could, because at some point we're going to do our damnedest to get every source of information and evidence, if it becomes accusatory, that we can. So either he can tell us now or perhaps tell us in another venue.
Yeah, absolutely.
And an interview like this, let's face it, an interview like this could take hours. It doesn't have to be a quick, bullet point questions that I might have, quickly put together on my way to the barracks.
No, absolutely. You would have done, make it take hours and then come back and ask him all over again and see if he changes his story, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, we collectively, the law enforcement agency, would have been interviewing anybody and everybody whose name we had, obtained through starting out with the two Bryans, and anyone else that we met initially, after 6 o'clock that morning. So there wouldn't have been any of this stuff like, let's talk to the plow driver a year later. It all would have happened within a very timely manner by a diligent law enforcement agency.
Right. The recollection would have been very fresh in Lucky's mind, but they didn't want to interview. Everybody here knows that this was a corrupt investigation meant to not garner any evidence that would suggest her innocence. They had to build a case against her. So they didn't want it. They were aware of Lucky Loughran. They were quite aware that the street was plowed. A blind person could see that the street was plowed. And they obviously are smart enough to know that the plow driver might have seen something. So obviously Proctor would have wanted to interview him if he didn't want to eschew any exculpatory evidence in Karen Reed's favor. Obviously. That was the whole purpose of last night's show regarding the, I said, a thought experiment using critical thinking skills. Any investigative police officer would have wanted to talk to the plow driver who made like 3, 4, or 5 sweeps up that road to see, did you see anything? Well, Mike Proctor didn't want to talk to Lucky. Why would that be? Well, because he might give evidence that suggests that the body was not there when it should have been there after 12:20 something at night. Because by 12:31 or whatever, or 12:37, I don't remember, is when she was clocked back into the Wi-Fi back at John's house. So there had to have been a body there at somewhere between 12:20 and 12:31. Any police officer would say, well, let me talk to the plow driver who plowed the street after that.
Mhm.
But they didn't want to. So we realize that it's corrupt. We were trying to play this as if what would happen if there were either in the first instance, if they were lay persons, how they would have approached the owners of the home and the occupants of the home at the time of the incident. And then we were able to extrapolate that into, okay, you're police officers, but we actually have honest police officers that are investigating this, and they actually bring in the McCabe's and the Alberts, both husband, wife, Higgins, and everybody's in a separate room being interrogated. And some of them are just sitting there stewing for hours, wondering what the other ones are saying before they could all get their story straight and be on a sofa with what's his face, with Mike Proctor, which is just the height of absurdity. All right, so super chats. Please pass the pepper again. We didn't get clarity on that. I want to thank you though for that. I don't think we have any more questions from super chatters. Miss Shorty, obviously, with a compliment. So let's get to the ones that I starred that are unsuper chatted. So this one right here. This is for Peter. It's odd only because Jen McCabe knew John O'Keefe, but she was driving around literally looking for John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe only. Who did she think that man passed out in the snow was? And that's my Jen McCabe. There's a man on the lawn at 34th Avenue. That's my Jen McCabe impression. I hope you guys like it.
It's
so,
not bad. It's not bad.
Not terrible?
No,
There's
it's
a man
good.
on the lawn at 34th Avenue, the Alberts residence. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Olivia, if you're still here, love, I don't know if you're still here. Obviously, that was all good play acting by Jennifer McCabe. Let's get Scott in here. Scott, pretty simple. John O'Keefe was found on a civilian's lawn, and Brian Albert didn't call in the fix before Canton PD arrived. Brian Albert didn't call in the fix before Canton PD arrived. The entire scene plays out differently. House entered the actual scene itself. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what Peter just said. He just told you how it would have happened. They would have knocked on the door. And this is what I said last night. They would have knocked on the door. They would have asked for entry. Peter, just he's a police officer, so he's going to say, "Hey, could I speak with your wife? Could you bring her to the door? Can you bring anyone who's home to the door so I can speak with them, even if you won't let me in? And we'll have a warrant. We'll get a warrant." And then he told you that within 30 to 45 minutes they would have had a warrant. And let's just say at the outset it was 2 hours. Let me ask you this, Peter. Could you guys have parked an officer there and said nobody comes in? And or nobody comes to that? Can you prevent people from coming, or do you just have to just station officers there as a present until the warrant is received?
You secure the scene. That's your objective is to secure the crime scene from any contamination, any footprints, anybody coming and going, and
right.
It could have been as simple as knocking on the door and saying, I'd like to come in and sit down and talk. There's something serious going on out here in front of the house. Have you been out to see it? No, I haven't. Okay, well, that raises some flags. Do you know who that person is? Did you hear anything overnight? Blah, 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 blah. We did a protective sweep. We walked around the back of the house, cutting through the neighbor's yard because your yard's fenced in. We saw a lot of footprints coming out of the bulkhead. We have some questions about that. What were people coming out of the bulkhead for after midnight? What was going on? It looks like a lot of activity out there. I'd like to talk to you about that. And if things don't, if things become problematic as far as the answers to a trained observer, it just raises the probable cause that you're going to put in your affidavit to get a warrant. And
so
at some point, you could freeze the crime scene. You can say, look at who's in the house, get them down here now, put your cell phones in that Paul Revere bowl over there, sit there with your hands folded, no communication. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
There you have it, folks. This is what would have happened. Julie, so yeah, if you Google the Craig Casey case in Canton, you will hear about what happened with Craig Casey in the lawn. It was awful. Scott McGinnis. Scott. Peter, one theory has always been that OJO's body was put in the car, say inside the garage, and then the car driven over to the front of the house. OJO removed and staged on the lawn. Ford Edge served as a shield. How do you like that theory?
I'm going to comment in two directions. Number one is I want to tell you that I don't know if you know, DJ, you probably may or may not know, but Scott McGinnis is probably got the highest attendance rate at all of these standouts of any of the Karen Reed team. Scott is a squared away guy, in my opinion, and he's rock solid, again, in my opinion. The question he's asking, that's been tossed around. Is it possible? It's certainly possible. However, we're dealing with a police officer. Now that we know you and I are not role playing anymore, we're dealing with a police officer who we're going to assume was lucid by the time he was making these decisions. Maybe not, but sometime after 3 a.m. Which brings me to another point. Remind me if I forget. I want to talk about a 4 a.m. radio transmission. Don't let me walk away from that. But anyway,
Okay. After
I'm
this.
going to suggest that a police officer with a skill set isn't going to drag a body through the house, upstairs, through the house, put it in a car, possible risk contamination of the rooms he's going through, or she, and putting it in a car. It just, there's just too much risk of DNA, cross contamination, in my opinion. The best way would have been to go out through the bulkhead around the back and then get some kind of a sweep, a broom, electric leaf blower, no noise, and just kind of clean off the footsteps that came out of the bulkhead and through the gate. And that's just my opinion. I'm not condescending anything in the direction of Scott with that comment, because that is out there, and I everything that comes to me, I tag it back and put it on the shelf, DJ, and then I go back to it and revisit it with more corroboration. And if you get 4 or 5 people telling you the same story, you got to give it traction. But what Scott has proposed with this theory is very viable. It may come out to be the truth. I don't know.
That's great, Scott. Thank you very much. That's a great theory. It could be that, or it could be the Ford Edge was just used as a shield to obscure the sight line of anybody out that was further afield from the street, from viewing someone coming through that backyard fence and then bringing the body over to rest there. Either, I mean, it very well could have been that it was done with the Ford Edge. But it also may not have. It may have just served as a shield so that people couldn't see it. But the body would be more protected, more obscured from sight inside the Ford Edge from in the garage than it would have been just blocking the street, because there's some other sight lines there. But I'm not familiar with 34 Fairview. I'm going to have to do some Google Earth there. All right, so you wanted to talk about the 4 a.m. call, and then we'll get to Marjorie. So go ahead, sir.
So we're talking about the plow driver, who we now know to be identified as Lucky, and also the likelihood that there's video ring camera footage from many, many, many streets and locations in the community that were obtained, I'm going to suggest, by outside agencies. We'll leave it at that. And then I'm going to tell you that there could very well be some ring camera footage that shows certain vehicles driving around sometime after 2:30 in the morning, responding to 34 Fairview Road. And that could be problematic for a lot of people. And there was supposedly a radio transmission. I have a pretty good source that indicated there was a radio transmission about 4 o'clock in the morning on the DPW radios that said, report of a pedestrian struck in the vicinity of Fairview Road by a plow. Now that allegedly was broadcast at 4 o'clock-ish in the morning. And then there was no further transmissions. There was nothing over the radios that the DPW radios would have picked up. and I believe there were subcontractors plowing for the town of Canton, where the intensity and the magnitude of the storm was going to be so great that there were contractors plowing for the town, helping the town out with the expected snow load. And they would have all had these DPW radios. And my understanding was that one of the contractors was asked by an employee, a plow driver, hey, whatever happened to that radio transmission at 0400 hours? And the comment was, we don't talk about that transmission, and there wasn't one, and don't bring it up again.
So that was meant to be a lark.
Well, I think
that transmission that was meant to field.
I'm going to suggest to you in the audience, was it the prelude to setting up Lucky for being the driver who would have struck a pedestrian? Right. I think what would have put the snafu on that, if that was the case, was there was not enough snow to make it look like a drift across the side of the road and let the plow come through. That's just my opinion. That's kind of like in the same direction.
That's some really, really. That's some really, really sick people that would do something. Well, obviously, these are really sick people that would try to frame an innocent woman. But thank you for shedding light on that. Marjorie asks you, Peter, who decides what exigent circumstances are? Like, there are certain scenarios that are automatically exigent or not. So, because you referred to exigent circumstances.
Yeah, without getting into the definition of it, exigency means that there is a likelihood that there could be a loss or destruction of evidence, critical evidence to a crime scene. It could be that there's critically injured people that need medical attention. That would create an exigency. It's something that if you don't address it in a very timely manner, like almost now, you're going to lose stuff, or it could be contaminated, or it could go away. And the intent of our judicial system is to preserve evidence so that you can bring it forward in a criminal setting, criminal trial, which obviously we saw the after effects of what didn't happen in this case.
This is a great point by Ann Merritt. Thank you, Ann. I don't know if you were at the standout today, but thank you, and thank you, Scott. Did B.A. have any sprained arm or injuries on his hands or face? I also think either Officer Lank or Good, who first went in Albert's house, would have smelt bleach, in my opinion. I'll let Peter answer that. For me, if they would have went in the basement, bleach is an odor that you can't really hide that quickly. So in a basement, that would have been very tough to hide. But what's your answer on that one, Peter? Any injuries to Brian Albert's arms, hands, face?
Am I aware of any? Is that the question you're posing me, DJ?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm not aware of anything that has come out in any evidence or testimony. So to answer that question, period, I'm not aware of any. Would there have been possibly if he was one of the combatants, or if he was one of the combatants? My guess is there certainly would have been some telltale signs about their face or their hands that they sustained a couple of, took a couple of incoming punches or hits. I can't speak to whether there was or not, and so I'm just saying it would have been telltale, perhaps, especially by the looks of John's hands. If there was a fight inside the house, somebody might have had some indication that they'd been hit. But
and we do know that Colin Albert had hit the scrapes on his knuckles. I don't know whether he's left-handed or right-handed. I don't know if that was his punching hand or not, but that would be interesting to know.
That would be interesting to note. But as you know, if you're going to slip on the ice, you put your knuckles down first and
always
embrace your fall. So
always.
Again, I'm not a doctor. I can't speak to what happened, but I would say this, and it's only a hunch. I think the feds have a lot more than we give them credit for right now, and I think things are going to get busy.
Praise be the Lord. Mystery singer. First of all, I loved if you're a singer because I love music. Yes, I do have my eyeglasses over top of my sunglasses. Paul had so this is for you, Peter. Paul had a DWI car accident and hit an elderly man whom he paralyzed and is suing Paul for medical bills, which could go into millions. This is a theory here. Paul needs Karen to get convicted so he can sue for her wrongful death. Wow, this is definitely in the conspiracy zone. What do you make of that?
Again, I don't discount anything. Everything's on the table. I'll listen to anything. I'll tag it and I'll bag it and I'll put it on the shelf. And if we can corroborate it down the road with one or two or three more people, is that theory any further fetched than what Scott McGinnis had? No. You know, on the car backing out of the garage and acting as a shield. I mean, I don't know. I think, as they say in the crime world, follow the money, right? If there's a money issue, I can't speak to what people's motives are, and I'm certainly not going to go down that rabbit hole on Paul O'Keefe. But again, I got to believe that if there's any information out there that would head in any of the direction of inculpatory towards anybody else other than Karen Reed, that the feds have it.
And I would say, let me just put that up there one more second. Yeah, I'll leave that where it lay, but I will say the former, just to paraphrasing what Peter said, the former Pentagon chief of the UFO program, Lou Elizondo, whose book Imminent is coming out on August 20th, about what he knows about UFOs. He ran the program for the Pentagon as the GS-15, and he said when they ask him this question about the origin, about the motives of UFOs, he says everything's on the table till it's off the table. So that's the same thing you said.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's guilty until proven innocent. Let's face it. You find a body on a lawn. It didn't come out of the bay of a C-130 or a flight coming back from Orlando.
Right.
And I don't mean that crassly. I mean, again,
no,
we're talking about a deceased police officer here, and a family, the Reed family, that's been tragically interrupted and tormented, and also the O'Keefe family that lost two family members in a short 6-month period. I mean, it's just a tragic situation between many families, and now you've got nieces and nephews involved too. It's horrible. And I'm going to suggest to you that if there was a diligent crime scene investigation sometime after 6 a.m. on that morning, that we may not even be having this conversation.
We're not.
There wouldn't be a need of it.
Nope, because as you said, again, we'll say it for the second time during the broadcast, and you said it very adroitly, there's 3 liters of blood that need to be accounted for. And to a skilled CSI people, someone like Eddie Wallace, from Duty Run, you're not going to be able to hide. You can throw down all the bleach you want. They're going to find a spot of that blood if there was 3 liters of blood, or they're going to find all the bleach, and that in itself is going to be, probable cause, and there's going to be and then you start getting all the other video, the Ring camera videos and everything like that comes into play if they're not able to find the blood, right? I mean, now all the videos, everything else, that they find that, oh, well, you're saying that the girlfriend did it, but she only has a cracked taillight. So how do you explain that this guy's dead on your lawn? Where the hell is his shoe? We have a video of him walking in the house from a Ring camera across the road. So that, the burden of proof certainly would shift over to the defense on that one. So Mystery Singer has another zinger here, which you're going to love. Instead of Jen McCabe, Peter, it's Jen McCabe.
Okay.
Jen McCabe on 911 called John O'Keefe it. Jen McCabe told Carrie giving CPR, get off him. Then Carrie told Karen, you're not helping. Wow. And so then she says these people are sick and evil psychopaths. Yeah, apparently so. Apparently they are very textbook in that way. That's all. You've really, Mystery Singer, you really have hit on it here, and I don't think I can add and say anything that could make more clear what you said. I'm going to go back to this. We're going to close the show now. I want to thank everybody. Thank you for the super stickers and super chats. I really do appreciate it. It's really going to help us out a lot. I got an LOL from True Crime Kangaroo. Thank you, love. There's no way that it is cleaned up 100%. Yeah, that is 100% true. I mean, I've heard CSI analysts have say that, you know, you can do what you want, but I'm going to find that spot of blood. You can bleach it. You can try to clean it up as best you can. I'm going to find it. Duty, Ron, and Ed. Yeah, those guys are awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Any parting shots, final words, Sergeant Peter Murphy?
Well, just as you and I both know, this was, as you called it, an impromptu get-together, sit-down tonight. I certainly, you know, I didn't have a chance to go over my my case
Your
law,
notes.
recent case law, my notes, names and faces and so forth. So if I appeared to be a little, you know, caught off guard, I was, as far as where you were going with this role playing and stuff. So, but it was.
You were great.
I hope it was informative to the audience, because that's what we're trying to do, is bring people to a point of asking questions in their own mind and asking other people, and filtering through the testimony that they're hearing, and God forbid hear again in January.
God forbid that. Yeah. Yeah, what you so yeah, that was the idea, was to kind of do a thought experiment, what would have happened, and Peter took you like what an interrogation would have looked like, what a conversation with the homeowners would have looked like were it not Brian Albert, or if it were just an honest police investigation, which I submit to you that Peter, were he on duty that night, that's what would have happened, whether Brian Albert was the homeowner or not. That would have happened. Although he might have hurt. I don't know what you would have done if the deputy chief would have told you, you know, I don't want you going and knocking on the door. What would you do then? Then you call, would you be calling the attorney general, or what do you do?
I would, I don't know. I probably would have taken the hit on failure to obey an order or command from a senior officer, and I would have knocked on the door.
There you go. So you guys got a good taste of what it was. I know we did a role play and there was a little bit of fun there. And thank you, Lily. Next time we do this, we will have you role playing. You can play any character. You could be Jen McCabe if you want. Next time we do this, we can have Peter interrogate Jen McCabe, but Lily's going to play Jen McCabe. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you and Miss Shorty Saturday night for the round table with Mazza. Nurse Kim, Sean McDonough. I don't know if I'm missing anybody. I think that's everybody. Anyway, but Peter, man, it has been an honor to be your friend, to be able to get to have these conversations with you offline. I thank you, everybody in the chat, for rescuing me with all the facts that I didn't know. And I realized that you can know a lot about this case and you really don't know. You can think you know a lot like I did. And there's so much that I don't know. Julie did an amazing job with catching up on this case, man. Wow, Julie, you really wowed me tonight. Really looking forward to it. See y'all then. Ernie, Birdie, thank you so much. We should all do charades. You are so funny with the comedy tonight, and there was somebody else in here that was really funny. If somebody can remind me who that was, hit me up on Twitter or whatever. You can see mine there. Peter Murphy is at Sergeant Slammer. For those of you who want to follow Peter Murphy, at Sergeant Slammer on Twitter. We need to get more follow. We need to get people communicating with them, because you are an amazing resource. And we might see you at this thing. I just got to make sure we don't have too many, but I would love to have you. And if I just shut up and don't talk more, then we could have you and Sean there. I'll just talk less.
This is your rodeo. You do a great job.
No.
I've just started, getting involved with watching your shows and participating in a couple of these. So, power to you, and you do what you got to do. And if I even just get to sit here and watch it live, without participating, I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm sure it's going to be a great roundtable, and encourage your audience to make sure that they slot that time out to watch it.
Yeah, so that'll be Saturday night, and it'll be even better if we get Peter in there. And right now they're saying for Sean, Sean says not members only, but Wednesday night, 6 p.m., Sean will have a reattack on the episode that he was going to have. And Sean is appointment listening. We all know that. So, all right. So, actually, let me scroll up, get my outro video here. Man, there it is. Cab outro. All right. So for Sergeant Peter Murphy, for all of you in the chat, whom we are just so indebted to for doing, coming and participating and making this so much damn fun. We really do appreciate it. Free Karen Reed, justice for John O'Keefe. Let's do this damn thing. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
On behalf
Thank
of
you.
All right, I appreciate it. Peace out. One love, and we'll see you down the road.
All right. Have a great night. You get a lot going on.
Thank you, brother.